It was just after midnight at Pine Hollow Campground, the kind of family place that looked cheerful in daylight and vaguely wrong after dark. The campground wrapped around a long black lake in northern Idaho, with gravel roads, scattered RV sites, and a small dock where kids spent the afternoon jumping into the water while their parents grilled hot dogs and drank beer in folding chairs. Caleb had come with his father and younger sister for a long weekend in July. His mother hated camping and had stayed home, which meant the trip had turned into one of those forced father-son weekends his dad kept promising would be good for them. By midnight, his sister was asleep in the tent, and his dad had finally passed out in a camp chair by the fire after too many bourbons. Caleb had no signal, nothing to do, and no chance of sleeping with his father snoring 10 feet away. So he took a flashlight and walked down toward the lake. The campground was quiet in that uneasy way family campgrounds get after midnight. Not silent. Never silent. Somewhere across the water, someone coughed inside an RV. A zipper pulled shut. A dog barked once and was immediately hushed. The sounds felt far away, muffled by the trees and the dark water. Caleb reached the shoreline and stopped. A girl was standing in the lake. She looked around his age, maybe 16 or 17, with dark hair hanging wet against her shoulders, and a gray t-shirt plastered to her body. She was chest deep in the water, completely still, facing him from 20 feet out. Not waving, not calling for help, just watching him. Caleb lifted the flashlight instinctively, but she flinched the second the beam hit her face. "Sorry," he said, lowering it. She didn't answer. For a moment he thought she might be drunk or high, or maybe sleepwalking. There were plenty of families around the lake, and he'd already seen older teenagers sneaking vodka into water bottles that afternoon. But something about the way she stood there, too still, too calm, made him uneasy. "Are you okay?" he asked. The girl stared at him for another second, then said, very quietly, "Did your dad lock the truck?" Caleb blinked. "What?" She glanced past him toward the tree line where the campsite sat hidden in darkness. "Did your dad lock it?" Her voice wasn't panicked. It wasn't dramatic. If anything, it sounded tired, like she was asking a question she already knew the answer to. Caleb opened his mouth to ask what she meant, but she had already turned away. She moved deeper into the lake without splashing, without looking back, until the water swallowed her shoulders, then her head. Within seconds, she was gone. Caleb stood there longer than he wanted to admit, waiting for her to resurface. She didn't. He jogged back to camp, with his pulse hammering harder than it should have. His father was awake now, standing beside the truck with the driver's side door open and a flashlight clenched between his teeth. "Where the hell were you?" he snapped, then pulled the flashlight from his mouth. "Did you take my keys?" Caleb shook his head. "No." His father looked irritated and more sober than he had 10 minutes earlier. Truck was unlocked. Glove box is open. And my pistol's gone. Caleb froze. His father always brought the handgun camping, something Caleb's mother hated, and his dad defended by talking about mountain lions and being smart in the woods. He kept it unloaded in the glove box with the magazine separate in the center console. Caleb had rolled his eyes about it every year. Now the glove box hung open under the truck's dome light like a wound. "What?" Caleb said. "The keys were on the picnic table," his father muttered. "I know I left them there. Now they're gone, too." Caleb looked toward the lake. His father noticed. "What?" For a second, Caleb considered saying nothing. The story already sounded insane in his own head. But then he told him. About the girl in the water. About what she'd asked. His father's face hardened in that way adults get when they're trying to decide whether you're lying, mistaken, or just being dramatic. "A girl was standing in the lake and asked about my truck." "Yes." "And you didn't think to come back right away?" "I didn't know what she meant." His father swore under his breath and woke the campground host. By 1 a.m, the host had called county deputies. 2 patrol vehicles rolled into Pine Hollow, with their headlights cutting across tents and RVs, waking half the campground. Caleb repeated the story twice, once to a deputy named Warren, once to a female detective who arrived later from town and took over the questions. "Describe her," the detective said. Caleb did his best. Teen girl, dark hair, gray shirt, barely spoke above a whisper. "Did she look injured?" "No." "Scared?" He thought about it. "No. Just cold, maybe. Tired." The detective wrote something down. Search teams walked the shoreline until dawn. They found no girl, no footprints clear enough to use, and no keys. But about a quarter-mile down the lake, half hidden in a patch of brush near an old fire ring, they found an abandoned campsite. Not a family site. Just one small tent, a sleeping bag, a cheap cooler, and women's clothing stuffed into a duffel bag. There was no registration tag, no vehicle nearby, and nothing that immediately identified who had been staying there. The weirdest part was how recently it had been used. The sleeping bag was still warm from the sun-blocking tarp overhead. A can of soup sat half-eaten beside the fire ring. A damp gray t-shirt hung from a branch to dry. Caleb saw the shirt from a distance and felt his stomach drop. By mid-morning, the detective had a name. The abandoned campsite belonged, at least according to a prescription bottle found in the duffel, to a 19-year-old woman named Harper Sloan, reported missing 2 days earlier, from Spokane. She had left home with her boyfriend after what friends described as a violent argument, and neither of them had been seen since. No one said much to Caleb after that. His father packed the truck in silence while deputies moved in and out of the campground asking questions. Families kept their kids close. The lake looked different in daylight. Smaller somehow. Less mysterious, but not safer. They were almost ready to leave when the detective returned. Her expression told Caleb the news before she spoke. A drifter had been found dead that morning on a logging road 3 miles east of the campground. Male, mid-40s, history of assault and weapons charges. He'd been shot once in the chest sometime during the night. The gun found beside the body was Caleb's father's. The truck keys were in the man's jacket pocket. Caleb's father went pale. "Jesus Christ." The detective nodded once. "Whoever took the gun used it and left it there." "Was it the girl?" Caleb asked before he could stop himself. The detective looked at him for a long moment. "We don't know." Harper Sloan was never found. The official theory was simple enough. She'd stolen the keys, taken the gun, and shot the drifter in self-defense after he attacked her. Then she panicked and ran. But that version never sat right with Caleb. Because if Harper had wanted the gun, she could have taken it without warning anyone. Instead, she stood chest deep in freezing lake water in the middle of the night and asked a 16-year-old boy one quiet question. "Did your dad lock the truck?" Caleb still doesn't know whether she was trying to save his family from a man moving through the campground, or making sure the weapon she needed was exactly where she hoped it would be. What he does know is this. The next day, when deputies emptied the abandoned campsite by the shore, they found one more thing buried at the bottom of Harper's duffel bag. A laminated campground map of Pine Hollow. Their own site had been circled in black ink. Not the truck. Not the lake. Their tent.